So, you're sleeping with my husband while planning your wedding to someone else? The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. I stood at the entrance of the private room at Bellini's, where 20 women in sparkly dresses froze mid-celebration. My husband Thomas was there too, dressed as, I still can't believe this, a fake stripper. His eyes widened in horror as I walked in with 3 people, her fiancé Michael, her father, and her very Catholic mother holding a rosary. The look on Sophia's face was worth every second of the pain I'd endured. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide the blood draining from her cheeks. The bride-to-be sash suddenly looked like a cruel joke across her chest. It wasn't how I imagined spending my Thursday night. 3 hours earlier, I had been making dinner, waiting for my husband to come home from what he called an emergency client meeting. 14 years of marriage. And I still believed him when he texted he'd be late. Faithful, trusting Miranda. That's who I'd always been. I remember stirring the pasta sauce when his smartwatch notification appeared on our shared iPad. A message from Sophie Work Project that read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. The girls are so excited about the fake stripper surprise. Best maid of honor and secret boyfriend ever." XOXO time stopped. My wooden spoon dripped sauce onto our kitchen tiles as I read it 3 times. The iPad revealed more. Months of messages, hotel receipts, inside jokes about deceiving the wife and the fiancé, and photos. God, the photos. Thomas has been mentoring me, she told me at the company Christmas party 6 months ago, her hand lingering too long on my husband's arm. I'd pushed away my discomfort because I didn't want to be that wife. Insecure, jealous, untrusting. I sank to the kitchen floor, surrounded by shattered assumptions. My marriage wasn't just imperfect, it was a facade. 14 years, 3 cities, 2 career changes. All those nights I'd comforted him through work stress, not knowing work stress had glossy brown hair and was half my age. The pasta water boiled over, but I couldn't move. My mind was already calculating, processing, deciding. I wasn't going to scream or break things. I wasn't going to call him crying. That's what he'd expect. Emotional Miranda, always leading with her heart instead of her head. No, this required something else entirely. It took 17 minutes to find Michael on social media, 22 minutes to introduce myself through a direct message, 40 minutes for him to call me back, his voice breaking as I shared evidence, and 90 minutes for us to create a plan with his reluctant assistance. Her parents are in town for wedding preparations, he told me, voice hollow with shock. They're staying at the Gardenia Hotel. I hadn't put on makeup, hadn't changed out of my jeans and sweater. My hair was in a messy bun and I didn't care. I drove to the hotel with my hand steady on the wheel, rehearsing what I'd say. The elderly couple in room 412 opened their door to find a stranger claiming their future daughter-in-law was cheating with a married man, my husband. And tonight, they could see proof. "This is absurd," Mrs. Reynolds had said, clutching her cardigan. "Sophia is devoted to Michael. They've been planning this wedding for over a year." Mr. Reynolds studied the messages on my phone with narrowing eyes. "Where is this happening?" "Bellini's downtown. Private room in the back. Her bachelorette party starts at 9. Your daughter doesn't know it, but my husband is the entertainment." That's how 4 strangers ended up in my car, driving in tense silence toward the restaurant. Michael stared out the window, occasionally wiping his eyes. Mr. Reynolds kept clearing his throat. Mrs. Reynolds prayed quietly, beads clicking between her fingers. "What exactly do you hope to accomplish?" Michael finally asked me. I checked my rearview mirror before answering. "The truth. Nothing more, nothing less." "And after the truth?" he pressed. I didn't have an answer then. I was operating on autopilot, driven by something beyond pain, a cold, clear determination I'd never felt before. When we arrived at Bellini's, I could hear the party from the hallway. Music, laughter, squealing. The hostess tried to stop us, but Mr. Reynolds mentioned his daughter's name with such authority that she stepped aside. And now, here we were, 20 women frozen in shock. My husband, in ridiculous tearaway pants, stopped mid-dance. And Sophia, her champagne glass slipping from her fingers, crashing to the floor in perfect synchronization with her carefully constructed lies. "Miranda," Thomas finally managed. This isn't what it looks like, I finished for him. Funny, that's exactly what your messages said you'd say if caught. The bridesmaids started whispering. Someone awkwardly turned off the music. I felt strangely calm, like I was watching this happen to someone else. Sophie, her mother's voice quavered. What is the meaning of this? Sophia's mascara was already running. Mom, Dad, it's complicated. Michael, I can explain. Michael stepped forward. We're 3 weeks from our wedding. 3 weeks. My family has spent a fortune. You've met my grandparents. You helped my little sister pick her junior bridesmaid dress. His voice broke. Was any of it real? The room was utterly silent now. I could feel everyone watching this collapse of multiple lives in real time. My husband took a step toward me, and I held up my hand. Don't, I said simply. Just don't. The silence shattered as Sophia's bridesmaids started grabbing purses and jackets, desperate to escape the unfolding catastrophe. A tall blonde whispered too loudly, I always thought something was off about her and that boss of hers. Another muttered, Oh my God. Her registry gifts already arrived at my house. Sophia stood frozen in her white, future Mrs. Campbell satin robe, her carefully constructed world collapsing in real time. My husband, still dressed in that ridiculous outfit, had backed himself against the wall, trapped between the buffet table and Mr. Reynolds's increasingly menacing stance. 14 years, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. 14 years, Thomas. And I had to find out through a watch notification. The humiliation burned deep in my chest. How many people knew? How many colleagues had exchanged knowing glances when I brought homemade cookies to his office Christmas party? How many dinner conversations had I enthusiastically shared about our vacation plans while he was mentally cataloging lies? Thomas attempted damage control. Miranda, please, let's discuss this privately. This is embarrassing for everyone. Embarrassing? I laughed, the sound sharp and unfamiliar even to my own ears. You're worried about embarrassment now? After showing up at your Mistress'S Bachelorette party dressed like Magic Mike? That's where you draw the line? Michael had moved to stand beside me, his engagement ring still on his finger, catching the light with cruel irony. How long? He asked, directing the question at both betrayers. Sophia's tearful eyes darted between him and my husband. Michael, baby, it's not serious, it's just 8 months, I interrupted, based on the hotel receipts I found. 8 months of working late and weekend conferences. I turned to Thomas. Remember when you missed my father's 70th birthday because of that emergency client meeting in Phoenix? Turns out you were only 15 minutes away at the Lakeside Inn with her. The memory of sitting alone at that birthday dinner, making excuses for my husband's absence, hit me with renewed force. My father had looked so disappointed, but I'd defended Thomas, believing his dedication to work was for our future. I'd called him that night, describing the cake, saving him a piece, all while he was with her. Mrs. Reynolds suddenly moved toward her daughter, her rosary still clutched tightly. We raised you better than this, Sophia Elizabeth. Your grandfather was a deacon. Your aunt is a nun. And you've been… She couldn't finish, crossing herself instead. Mom, it's complicated, Sophia pleaded. Thomas and I, we just connected on a different level. A different level? I echoed. Let me guess. He told you your ambition was inspiring? That you understood his deepest thoughts? That his wife, that would be me, just doesn't get him anymore? The flash of recognition in her eyes confirmed I'd hit the mark. He said the same things to me 16 years ago, I continued, when I was his ambitious young colleague and he was engaged to someone else. That silenced the room. Even Thomas looked stunned that I knew. Yes, I found those messages too, I told him quietly. Caroline's tearful emails when you broke it off 2 months before your wedding. History repeats, doesn't it? I hadn't known about Caroline when we got together. He'd told me his engagement ended mutually, that they'd grown apart naturally. I'd believed him completely. Now I wondered if Caroline had stood somewhere feeling exactly as Michael did now. Betrayed, replaced, discarded. Sophia's father had remained ominously quiet until now. My daughter is about to humiliate our entire family, he finally said, voice tight with controlled rage. 300 guests, your mother's entire prayer group, your grandparents flying in from Ireland. Daddy, please. We paid for everything, he continued, because Michael's parents couldn't afford to. $70,000, Sophia. For what? So you could play house with a married man twice your age? Thomas flinched at twice your age. At 47 to her 26, it wasn't quite true, but the point landed. One of the bridesmaids who hadn't managed to escape raised her hand awkwardly. Should we, go or… No one answered her. Michael had found his voice again, addressing Sophia with devastating quietness. You let me book our honeymoon yesterday. Non-refundable. You were texting me about our first dance song this morning, all while planning to see him tonight. I watched Sophia's face as the full impact of her actions began to register. The careful compartmentalization of her two relationships was collapsing, worlds colliding catastrophically. You gave me this. Michael pulled out a handwritten note from his wallet. On our anniversary last month. You're the only man I've ever truly loved. Was that before or after meeting him at the Lakeside Inn? Sophia's mascara-streaked face crumpled. Michael, it was a mistake. Thomas means nothing. Thanks, my husband muttered bitterly. Nothing? I challenged her. The messages I read didn't sound like nothing. They sounded like you were planning a future, discussing how to handle the fallout when you both eventually left us. I watched the blood drain from Michael's face as this new information hit him. Sophia shot me a look of pure hatred. That's right, I continued, addressing everyone. They weren't just sleeping together, they were plotting. After the wedding, after Sophia secured Michael's family inheritance, there would be a convenient divorce, and poor Thomas would finally escape his controlling wife. My voice didn't break, but I felt something crack inside me. The casual cruelty of their discussions about me, about our life together, had been the most painful part of the discovery. Not just the betrayal, but the rewriting of our entire history. In their messages, I was the villain, needy, suspicious, cold. Never the woman who had nursed him through pneumonia, who had supported his career changes, who had buried his mother while he was too grief-stricken to function. I gave you everything, I said to Thomas, finally allowing the pain to surface. When you wanted to quit your corporate job to start the consulting firm, I worked 2 jobs to support us. When you were depressed after your mother died, I slept on the floor beside you for weeks because you couldn't bear to be alone. A few of the remaining bridesmaids looked away, embarrassed to witness such raw emotion. I gave you everything, I repeated, my voice dropping to almost a whisper. And you gave her the parts of yourself that were supposed to be mine. The manager of Bellini's appeared at the doorway, drawn by the commotion. Is everything all right here? We've had complaints about… He stopped, taking in the scene. The tearful bride-to-be, my husband in his ridiculous outfit, the shocked parents and the lingering, uncomfortable bridesmaids. Everything's fine, I said calmly. Just a small private matter. A small private matter? Thomas finally found his courage. Miranda, you've created a scene that's embarrassing everyone. This is exactly why… Why what? I challenged him. Why you sought comfort elsewhere. Go ahead, make me the villain. It's what you've been doing in your messages for months. Thomas straightened his shoulders, shifting into the confident corporate persona I knew so well. Everyone, I apologize for this uncomfortable situation. My wife has been struggling with some emotional issues lately and… Emotional issues? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Is that what we're calling this? I reached into my bag and removed a folder, navy blue, labeled with our accounting firm's logo. I'd prepared it 3 hours ago after finding the messages, while operating on a strange, detached clarity I'd never experienced before. 2 weeks ago, I told the room, I met with our financial advisor for what I thought was a routine portfolio review. He mentioned something odd. A series of large transfers from our joint investment account to an LLC I didn't recognize. I opened the folder, removing several printed statements. Thomas's face went slack with recognition. Altitude Consulting Group, I continued. Sounds impressive, doesn't it? Except it doesn't exist. At least not as a legitimate business. It's a shell company you created to funnel our money into a separate account. Nearly $300,000 over the past year. The room had gone completely silent. Even Sophia looked shocked. "Miranda," Thomas started. "I didn't confront you," I continued as if he hadn't spoken. "I was confused, concerned there was a misunderstanding. So I did some investigating. And do you know what I found, Thomas? Apartment listings in your search history. Real estate inquiries in Chicago, where Sophia's new job starts next month." I turned to Sophia. "Did he tell you he was going to surprise you with a luxury apartment? Using money from our retirement fund? Money we saved together over 14 years? Sophia's stunned expression answered my question. "I've been planning this exit for months," I said, my voice steady despite the emotions roiling beneath, not knowing exactly what was happening, but sensing something was deeply wrong. "I moved half our assets into accounts you can't access. I documented every unusual withdrawal. I hired a forensic accountant who's been tracking your financial movements since March." Thomas's face had gone from red to ashen. "You had no right." "I had every right," I cut him off. "Marriage is a legal partnership, Thomas. Something you seem to have forgotten while playing sugar daddy with our shared resources." I addressed Sophia directly. "He can't afford you, by the way. The fancy hotels, the expensive gifts, it's all borrowed against our home equity. A home I helped pay for. He's mortgaged our future to finance your affair." Mr. Reynolds stepped forward, his business instincts clearly triggered. "How much debt are we talking about?" "Nearly 200,000, I answered, "not counting what he's already siphoned from our accounts." Michael looked bewildered. "Why would you need his money? Your family is not as wealthy as they appear," I finished for him. "I did my research on everyone involved. The Reynolds family business has been struggling for years. Your future father-in-law's company filed for Chapter 11 restructuring last year." Mrs. Reynolds gasped softly, and her husband placed a restraining hand on her arm. "That's private family business," Mr. Reynolds said stiffly. "So is my marriage," I replied without heat. I turned back to Thomas, who was now leaning against the wall as if he might collapse. "You thought you were so careful, but you left breadcrumbs everywhere. The secondary email account you forgot to log out of on our home computer. The business credit card statements delivered to our house. The hotel loyalty program that sent a 'congratulations on your 5th stay' email to your personal account. I'd been collecting these pieces for months, not fully understanding what they meant, just knowing something was wrong. Each discovery had been a small wound, but I'd tucked them away, made excuses, told myself I was being paranoid. 3 months ago, I hired a lawyer," I continued. "She's been building a case for financial fraud within our marriage. Everything is documented. Everything is ready." This wasn't entirely true. I'd consulted a lawyer once, casually, about updating our wills. But Thomas didn't need to know that. The financial documentation was real, though. I'd always been the detail-oriented one in our relationship. "You're bluffing," he finally said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Am I?" I held his gaze. "Call our accountant. Ask him who requested the audit of our investment portfolio last month. Ask him who's been tracking every unusual transaction since spring." Thomas swallowed hard, and I knew he wouldn't make that call. Because even if I was exaggerating some details, he knew the core truth. He had been stealing from our future to finance his affair and their planned escape. I turned to Michael, softening my tone. "I'm sorry you got caught in this. I truly am. But wouldn't you rather know now than after the wedding? Before you're legally bound to someone who could do this?" Michael nodded slowly, twisting his engagement ring. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for having the courage I didn't." Sophia made a desperate lunge toward him. "Michael, please. It was a mistake. I was confused." "Confused for 8 months?" he asked, stepping back from her reach. "Confused through our engagement party, our wedding tasting, our counseling with the minister?" The remaining bridesmaids had formed a tight cluster near the door, witnessing the implosion of what should have been a celebration. One of them, the maid of honor based on her special sash, looked particularly devastated. "I've known you since we were 14, she said to Sophia. "I've been planning your bachelorette party for months. You let me spend thousands of dollars, took time off work for your bridal shower, and all while—" She gestured helplessly at Thomas. Sophia's carefully constructed house of cards was collapsing from all sides. Her fiancé, her friends, her family, all witnessing the unraveling of her deception. "This isn't who I am," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "It's exactly who you are," I corrected her gently. "It's who you both are. People willing to hurt others to get what you want. The only difference is, I'm not playing the victim anymore." The door to the private room opened again. This time it was Jeffrey Wilson, Thomas's business partner and oldest friend. I'd texted him from the car. "What the hell, Thomas?" Jeffrey surveyed the scene with growing alarm. "Miranda called saying there was an emergency, but this is—" He trailed off, noticing Thomas's ridiculous outfit and Sophia's tear-streaked face. "Perfect timing," I said, beckoning him inside. "Since we're all here airing dirty laundry, let's make it complete." Thomas made a move toward his friend. "Jeff, this isn't what—" "Save it," Jeffrey cut him off, looking disgusted. "I warned you months ago this would blow up in your face." So Jeffrey had known. Another betrayal to add to the growing list. "What Thomas doesn't realize," I continued smoothly, "is that I met with Jeffrey last week. Not as his friend's wife, but as a potential client." Thomas froze. "What?" "Our firm's been expanding its PR crisis management division," Jeffrey explained, not meeting Thomas's eyes. "Miranda wanted to consult about a theoretical situation involving corporate partner misconduct." "Theoretical," I echoed with a small smile. "Until it wasn't." Jeffrey turned to face the room. "Wilson and Parker Consulting takes ethical breaches extremely seriously, especially when they involve exploitation of company resources or relationships." Thomas's face drained of what little color it had left. "Jeff, buddy, come on. Sophia has been your direct report for nearly a year," Jeffrey continued coldly. "A clear violation of our firm's policy on workplace relationships. You've expense accounted your hotel meetings as client entertainment. You've had her travel with you on the company dime." "That's not—" Thomas began. "It's all documented," Jeffrey cut him off. "Every receipt, every calendar entry, every corporate card transaction. The managing partners are meeting tomorrow morning. I came tonight as a courtesy, to let you know your office will be packed up by security before you arrive." Sophia stepped forward, panic rising in her voice. "But my job is also under review," Jeffrey confirmed without emotion. "Considering the circumstances, I'd suggest updating your resume." The clinical dismantling of their professional lives seemed to hit both of them harder than the personal fallout. Thomas actually staggered, reaching for a chair to steady himself. "You can't do this," he said weakly. "I built that firm with you. I brought in the Westridge account, which is now my account," Jeffrey replied, "along with all your other clients. The partnership agreement you signed has a moral conduct clause. Section 4, paragraph 3, language you approved, if you recall. I hadn't actually known about the moral conduct clause until this moment, but I kept my face neutral. Every new revelation was another gift, another confirmation that my instincts had been right." Michael had been watching this exchange with growing comprehension. He turned to Sophia. "So, you're losing your job too. No apartment in Chicago. No income. Were you planning to use my family's money to support yourself while continuing this?" Before she could answer, Mrs. Reynolds stepped forward, her previous shock hardening into cold fury. "The wedding is off," she announced. "I will not watch my son marry a woman capable of such deception." "Mom, please," Sophia began. "I've already called Father McKinley," her mother continued relentlessly. "He's agreed the church cannot in good conscience proceed with a ceremony founded on such dishonesty." Mr. Reynolds nodded grimly. "I'll contact the vendors tomorrow. Better to lose deposits than proceed with this farce." The systematic dismantling of Sophia's carefully planned wedding seemed to break something in her. She sank into a chair, her white satin robe now stained with mascara and wine. "What am I supposed to do now?" she whispered, more to herself than anyone. I felt a strange moment of sympathy for her, despite everything. She was young, misguided, selfish, but watching her world collapse was like witnessing a car crash in slow motion. "That's not our problem anymore," Michael said, his voice firmer than before. He removed his engagement ring and placed it on the table in front of her. "I deserve better than this." We all do. Thomas had regained some composure and turned to me with narrowed eyes. You planned all this. The dramatic confrontation, the financial revelations, calling Jeffrey? No, I corrected him. I discovered your betrayal 3 hours ago. Everything since has been improvisation, but effective improvisation, built on months of subliminal preparation while my subconscious processed what my conscious mind couldn't accept. I approached him slowly. For months, I've felt something was wrong. I've been collecting evidence without even realizing what I was doing, documenting discrepancies, noting inconsistencies in your stories. My body knew we were in danger before my mind caught up. I stood directly in front of him now, close enough to smell his cologne, the new one I'd noticed months ago but hadn't questioned. While you were plotting your escape, I was instinctively building my defense. That's the difference between us, Thomas. You destroy. I protect. The remaining bridesmaids had given up any pretense of discretion and were openly recording the confrontation on their phones. Tomorrow, this would be all over their social circles. By next week, it would ripple through the entire company. Thomas and Sophia had not just lost their relationship cover, they'd lost their reputations, their professional standing, their carefully constructed future. You've ruined me, Thomas said quietly. No, I replied, equally soft. You did that yourself. I'm just making sure I don't go down with you. I turned to address the room one last time. I think we've all seen enough. Michael, Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, I'm truly sorry about the wedding. The fault lies with these two, not with you. Mr. Reynolds nodded stiffly. We appreciate your directness in bringing this to our attention. Michael stepped forward and unexpectedly took my hand. Thank you, he said simply. It hurts like hell right now, but you saved me from something much worse. Jeffrey moved toward the door. Thomas, you have until noon tomorrow to turn in your company phone, laptop, and credentials. The firm will be conducting a full audit of your accounts. As people began to disperse, the energy in the room shifting from explosive confrontation to the hollow aftermath, Thomas made one last attempt to salvage something. Miranda, we need to talk privately about this. 14 years can't end like this. I looked at him, really looked at him, for perhaps the first time in months. The man I had loved, built a life with, trusted completely. Now a stranger in a ridiculous costume, desperately trying to maintain control of a situation spiraling far beyond his grasp. 14 years didn't end tonight, Thomas, I said quietly. They ended the first time you decided I wasn't enough. The first time you lied. The first time you chose her. I picked up my purse and folder. I'll be staying at the Lakeside Inn tonight, I added with deliberate irony. You can start packing your things. My lawyer will contact you about the house. I walked out without looking back, leaving Thomas standing alone in his tear-away pants, surrounded by the wreckage of champagne glasses, white satin decorations, and shattered illusions. 6 months can change everything. I'm sitting on the deck of a cabin in the mountains, watching the sun set behind pine trees. The air is crisp with early autumn, and my coffee has gone cold beside me. I don't mind. These days I'm learning to appreciate things as they are, not as I think they should be. The divorce was finalized last month, quicker and cleaner than most, thanks to the financial documentation I'd gathered and Thomas's desire to avoid further public humiliation. He didn't fight for the house or contest the asset division. His lawyer made a half-hearted attempt to claim I had set him up with the public confrontation. But even that fizzled when faced with the evidence of his financial deceptions. I sold the house, couldn't bear to live in it anymore. Too many shadows in the corners, too many conversations embedded in the walls. I bought this cabin instead, 2 hours from the city, close enough to commute 3 days a week to my new job at a nonprofit arts foundation, far enough to feel like a fresh start. Thomas and Sophia didn't last 3 weeks after that night. Without the excitement of secrecy, without their planned Chicago escape, without their jobs or social standing, whatever had fueled their affair quickly burned out. Last I heard, he'd moved to Seattle to restart his career. She'd gone back to her parents' home in another state, her reputation in our city unsalvageable after videos from that night went viral in certain social circles. I'm not proud of how things unfolded. The public nature of the confrontation, while satisfying in the moment, left collateral damage I hadn't anticipated. Michael's younger sister, the junior bridesmaid, apparently cried for days. Sophia's grandmother had a minor health scare from the stress. The ripples of pain extended far beyond the immediate participants. Yet I can't bring myself to regret it either. Some betrayals run so deep that only the harsh light of complete exposure can properly cauterize the wound. My phone buzzes with a text message. It's Michael, checking in as he occasionally does. We're not dating, both too raw, too wary for that. But we've developed an unexpected friendship. Trauma bonding, my therapist calls it. Whatever it is, it helps to talk to someone who understands exactly how it feels to have your future stolen and rewritten without your consent. Still on for coffee next week? His message reads. I text back a simple yes, looking forward to it. He started a new job, moved to a different apartment, adopted a dog. Small steps toward rebuilding. We're both doing that in our own ways. The hardest part wasn't losing Thomas. It was losing my trust. In my own judgment, in my perceptions, in my ability to discern truth from fiction. For months after, I questioned every memory. Were there signs I missed? Clues I ignored? Had our entire marriage been a performance on his part? My therapist says that's normal. That betrayal of this magnitude rewires your brain temporarily, makes you scan constantly for threats. She says it will fade with time. I'm still waiting. The sun has almost disappeared now, painting the sky in watercolor strokes of orange and purple. I wrap my cardigan tighter around my shoulders and think about what I've learned these past 6 months. I've learned that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the quiet voice that documents discrepancies, that pays attention to unease, that refuses to be gaslighted into disbelieving its own perceptions. I've learned that endings, while painful, can also be doorways. I've learned that I am more resilient than I ever imagined. The financial settlement from the divorce is enough to support me while I build this new life. The job at the Arts Foundation pays less than my corporate position, but it feeds my soul in ways I'd forgotten were possible. The cabin needs work. The roof leaks in heavy rain. The heating system is temperamental. But fixing these things with my own hands has become unexpectedly therapeutic. Yesterday, I hung new curtains in the bedroom. Such a simple act, yet it felt monumental. These curtains weren't chosen to match someone else's preferences or to accommodate a shared aesthetic. They're boldly patterned, slightly impractical, entirely mine. As darkness settles over the mountains, I gather my empty coffee cup and prepare to head inside. A text arrives from my sister. How's Mountain Woman doing tonight? I smile and type back, peaceful. Finally, peaceful. And it's true. The anger hasn't disappeared entirely. It flares occasionally when a memory ambushes me, or when a mutual friend mentions Thomas. But it no longer consumes me. It's no longer the primary color of my existence. In the end, what Thomas and Sophia never understood is that taking back your power doesn't require elaborate schemes or perfect timing. Sometimes it's as simple as standing in your truth and refusing to look away, even when that truth is wrapped in tear-away pants and fake bow ties at a bachelorette party that was never supposed to include you. Some storms destroy, others clear the air. I'm grateful to have survived mine and to discover on the other side this unexpected horizon, wide open and finally